I honestly didn't expect to like the scarf as much as I do. I started it completely on a whim, mostly to get rid of yarn that had been sitting in my stash for years, and somehow it turned into one of my favorite simple knits. In this video, I'll walk you through why this yarn almost didn't become a project, what I do differently next time, and whether broken rib stitch really works with scarves. This yarn took up a lot of mental and physical space in my stash. I'd wanted to use it for a long time, but to be honest, I was also close to giving it away. I originally bought it because I was running out of yarn for a shawl, but that shawl turned out way too big, so I reknit the whole thing and suddenly didn't need the extra yarn anymore. While I liked the finished shawl, I was never fully happy with the colors, so using up the leftovers wasn't exactly exciting. Variegated or self-striping yarns, I'm never quite sure what to call them, always look very different as a skein compared to knitted up, and they often have that one color that feels slightly off. If you worked with similar yarns, you probably know this problem. On top of that, I don't wear many multicolored garments, and I wouldn't have had enough yarn for a sweater anyway. I did consider color work since I used this yarn before in a hat, but I couldn't quite find a project that really felt right. That's when a scarf started to make sense. Practical, flexible, and a good way to really see what the yarn wants to do. Before casting on, I spent some time thinking about the shape. I already own plenty of rectangular scarves and also quite a few triangular ones. I love the length of rectangular scarves, but when I'm indoors, I actually prefer triangular ones. So I decided to combine both ideas, a mostly rectangular scarf with increases and decreases at the ends to create some shaping. That also means there wouldn't be a bulky amount of fabric right around the bust, which I personally find more flattering. Luckily, I could reuse the gauge from the shawl I had already knitted with this yarn. I only had to decide on width and length. For the width, I went with about 30 centimeters, warm but not too bulky. For the length, I measured that I needed at least 1,30 meters, but more would be better. A typical scarf is around 1,80 meters. So I aimed for that and planned to see how far my yarn would take me. The stitch pattern was another conscious choice. I went with a broken rib, a stitch I've never tried before, but always wanted to. Since it's supposed to lie flat and not roll, it seemed perfect for a scarf. To keep the edges neat, I slipped the first stitch of every row and twisted the last stitch. Because this is such a monotone project, I also decided to track how much I knitted each day. For me, seeing progress really helps with motivation and repetitive projects. Once I had cast on, progress was fast, at least at first. But I quickly realized that I had made things a bit harder for myself. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but purling takes me noticeably longer than knitting. And with broken rib, you can choose whether every second row is a knit row or a purl row, depending on which side you want to be the right side. I chose to purl, even though, realistically, it doesn't matter for a scarf that you can flip over. Still, I really loved the look, so I stuck with it. As the scarf got longer, I noticed something unexpected. While broken rib really doesn't roll at the top and bottom, it did start to roll in at the sides. That surprised me because ribbing usually behaves better. Starting over wasn't an option, so I decided to steam block it mid-project to see if it would improve enough for me to continue. I wasn't sure this would actually fix it. It didn't completely fix the issue, but it helped enough that I found it comfortable going on. I'm hoping that a proper wet blocking once it's finished will work even better. Since this is wool, it should hold its shape fairly well after blocking. What surprised me most, though, was how many mistakes I made. For such a simple stitch and simple project, I really didn't expect that. I kept mixing up knit and purl stitches and lost stitches at the end of the rows more than once. I think assuming it would be easy knitting actually messed with my concentration. Thankfully, I noticed all mistakes early enough to fix them without major setbacks. In the end, the scarf took me about 1 week to knit and roughly 18 hours total, which was only possible because I was on vacation. Under normal circumstances, that wouldn't have happened. Lengthwise, I ended up with 1,80 meters and even have a bit of yarn left, so all my worries about yarn chicken were completely unnecessary. I like the scarf a lot more than expected. I'm genuinely excited about it. The color variation in the yarn turned into more of a blocky effect rather than strong stripes, which I like much better than how it looked in the skein. It also makes the scarf surprisingly versatile. I can already think of many outfits it will work with. The thinner ends give it a modern feel and the length turned out exactly right. I still have 69 grams of yarn left, and I'm debating what to do with it. I'm thinking either a matching hat or fingerless gloves. Let me know in the comments which one you'd prefer. If you enjoyed this kind of quiet, honest project talk, feel free to subscribe. Most of my videos are exactly this: slow knitting, design decisions, and learning along the way. Thanks for watching.